today is going to be a different day, inshallah. We are going to have a topic for discussion that help people a lot to transfer their issues in life, as now we see life is so difficult for us, especially here in Sudan. So today, inshallah, this is going to be held here in this center, and it's held by Culture and Changers Center. So our topic today is about change and diversity, and how the two ideas come together to help people to live a better life. So for today we're having Mr. Telal Musa, the presenter of this issue. Inshallah, and the presenters, the people who are participate, they are going to hear a lot for his ideas. And after that, we have in the comments, and for me, I'm going to hold the questions and help for you all. So welcome, Mr. Telal.
Thank you very much, Majduleen. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, today we'll be talking about change and how does change affect us every day. Okay, we're gonna talk about change from a philosophical point of view. How we handle change is the essence of our existence and the key to happiness, particularly in our current times of uncertainty. Today we would like to explore the philosophy of change. One of the earliest philosophers who actually tried to explain and tried to understand what is change, he was a Greek philosopher called Heraclitus. Life is flux, said the philosopher Heraclitus. The Greek philosopher who pointed out in 500 BC that everything is constantly shifting and becoming something other to what it was before. Like a river, life flows ever onwards, and while we may step from the riverbank into the river, the waters flowing over our feet will never be the same. Waters that flowed even one moment before. Heraclitus concluded that since the very nature of life is change, to resist this natural flow was to resist the very essence of our existence. There is nothing permanent except change. So change is the only permanent thing in this life. So trying to resist it means trying to resist the essence of your existence, trying to resist the purpose of your existence. The novelist Elena Ferrante said recently, "We don't have to fear change. What is other shouldn't frighten us. If we can learn to handle this constant flux, we can handle life itself." Which is several millennia on form, Heraclitus in our currently uncertain and fast-changing times feels particularly resonant. Since humankind has existed, many great artists, writers, and philosophers have grappled with the notion of change and our impulse to resist it. Something in us wishes to remain a child, to reject everything strange, wrote the 20th century psychologist and author Carl Jung in The Stages of Life, echoing Heraclitus. For these thinkers, a refusal to embrace change as a necessary and normal part of life will lead to problems, pain, and disappointment. If we accept that everything is constantly changing and fleeting, they say things run altogether more smoothly. So, does the life is flux theory mean we must be resigned in a fatalistic way to all the challenges, changes, and crises life throws at us? Not necessarily, says John Sellers, author of new book Lessons in Stoicism and Philosophy lecturer at Royal Holloway University of London. According to Sellers, Heraclitus' theory is less about resignation and more about acceptance. Change is a favorite subject of Stoicism, a school of Hellenistic philosophy, partly inspired by Heraclitus, that is informed by a system of logic and its view of the natural world. To be stoical in the popular imagination is to endure hardship without complaint, to grin and bear it. But the philosophy is more nuanced than that. In this book, Sellers waves together the thoughts of three Stoics, Seneca, Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius. Seneca, Epictetus, and Marcus Aurelius, showing how their ideas can help us today. Everything changes. The question is, do we change with it? John Sellers asked. Stoics believe that nothing is stable, and we need to come to terms with that. The natural world is made up of a series of processes that are changing. But if we want to live happily with nature, we have to live in harmony with it. In fact, he says, Stoicism is not so much about resisting change as facing up to it. Everything changes. The question is, do we change with it? He says, Sellers. Stoics say we don't have any choice. We can't fight it. We can't fight change. Since we can't fight change, so we need to adapt and we need to learn how to live harmoniously with change. The idea is echoed throughout art and literature as well. For an example, the British author Virginia Woolf, who famously wrote in an interior monologue style that itself captured the mutability of thought, wrote, "A self that goes on changing is a self that goes on living." So, changing in itself means living. In one of her most unconventional works, the prose poem The Waves, Woolf follows the consciousness of 6 friends, starting from their childhoods. The characters enter new phases of life that are filled with novelty and lack of certainty. A fluid narrative voices shifts subtly between their different points of view, as all of them struggle in some way to define themselves. Woolf presents them all as in a perpetual process of change and metamorphosis throughout the story, as all of us are in life. So in this novel, she tries to depict this vision of change, this vision of humankind changing with the time in these 6 characters, from their childhood until their adolescence. The only lasting truth. In her speculative sci-fi novel Purple of the Sower, which was published in 1993, Octavia E. Butler presents a protagonist, Lauren, who founds a religion she calls Earth Seed, and who has visions of change as the animating force of the cosmos. Lauren notes down her visions as epigrammatic statements. All that you touch, change. All that you change, changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change. So what we can understand here is that everything we do every day, no matter what is it that we do, changes. But simultaneously, what we change changes us in return. So change is the only lasting truth. God is change. She also makes the same connection between life, change, and nature as Heraclitus did in his Life is Flux theory. Butler writes, seed to tree, tree to forest, rain to river, river to sea, grubs to bees, bees to swarm, from one many, from many one, forever uniting, growing, dissolving, forever changing. The universe is God's self-portrait. So here, this is how it happens. From seed, it turns to tree. From one tree, many trees come to exist, and then they form a forest. It rains. The rain becomes a river. The river becomes a sea. The grubs turns to bees, and then the bees turns to swarm. From one object, there can be many objects, and from many objects, there can be one object. Forever uniting, growing, dissolving, and changing. The universe is God's self-portrait. So the universe is, she claims here that God created the universe in his self-portrait, as he seems, or as he naturally, or what she tries to say, that maybe even God changes. A medieval prophet asked a wise man for a message to keep him safe. His answer, "This too shall pass." It was a phrase used in recent months by the actor Tom Hanks in connection with the coronavirus pandemic. and it's the name of a book out recently by the psychotherapist Julia Samuel. In this too shall pass stories of change, crisis, and hopeful beginnings. Samuel relates anonymously some of her clients' stories. Every person who has walked through my door has had a problematic relationship with change. She tells BBC Culture, change is the one certainty of life, and pain is the agent of change. There's many people don't understand this. Pain is the agent of change. In order for you to change, it means there will be pain. It forces you to wake up and see the world differently, and the discomfort of it forces you to see the reality of it. It exactly can be applied on our situation in Sudan today. We ask for change, but we ask for change without what comes with it, which is pain, which is trying to see the reality in its true picture. It's through pain that we learn, personally and also universally. So we learn through pain. We can't live comfortably all our life and expect something to change, expect to have what we want without actually getting out of our beds and trying to do something for that. Thank you very much.
بطلب منك انك انت تعمل اشتراك تحت عشان ما يصلك كل جديد من الفيديوهات اللي احنا بنعملها دي. وبرضه لو لقيت انت شايف في مجموعة بتاعت ناس من حوالينك انت بتحبهم ممكن الحاجة تفيدهم، يا حبذا لو قدرتوا تشارك الفيديو ده معاهم وقدرتوا تقعدوا تناقشوا فيه وتدونا برضه آراءكم تحت في الكومنتات تحت وتكتبوا لنا آراءكم وانتوا رأيكم شنو في المواضيع اللي احنا بنطرحها بصورة مختلفة دي. شكرا لأنك انت قدرت تحضر الفيديو ده للمرة الثانية، ونتمنى انه تكون معنا في الفيديو الجاي وترقب الفيديو الجاي قريبا. عشان كده لابد تفعل الجرس عشان يصلك المعلومة دي. شكرا.